So we've been talking about trust, and yesterday I was telling the story of someone who's having some marital problems because of breaking the trust with his partner. So, we were saying that relates also to the community, and when people here do things kind of outside the precepts or outside the guidelines that we've set up for the community, that breaks trust also. And because then people are going in different directions. Everybody else is going in one direction, and this individual's going in another direction, usually with attachment or anger. Okay? And when we look in situations where trust is broken, so often it's due to attachment or anger. We get attached to somebody, in this case of my friends, getting attached to somebody else and going off in a direction with that person, or you get attached to money and you're going off in, or possessions and you're going off chasing that. When attachment takes us away from the things that we have committed ourselves to, then we often kind of rationalize and justify what we're doing, saying, well, I'm not really doing anything outside of what everybody else is doing. For example, like if somebody is embezzling money at the company they work at, that's a break of trust. Or I would say what the Wall Street bankers did was a break of trust. But if you ask any of those people, I'm sure they wouldn't say, oh, I broke trust, or I was embezzling, or I was cheating, because nobody likes to think that about themselves. They would say, they would have reasons for it. Well, I'm working very hard for the company and they aren't paying me enough, so it's okay if I take that extra money because I actually deserve it. I'm not embezzling. Or, I'm a banker, so I know the ins and outs of the system. I can use that perfectly well to my own advantage. There's nothing illegal about it. It's not attachment. I'm not doing anything wrong. So, and we can see that in our own selves too, can't we? Because we were talking yesterday about how when we break trust, we always have reasons and rationalizations, justifications about how it's not really bad what we're doing, right? Yeah, so it's the same with everybody. So attachment is one thing that does that. Anger also can make us break trust. We get really angry at somebody who we're close to or we're working with, and then we want revenge, and so we inflict harm on them, perhaps sabotaging their projects, talking about them negatively behind their back, criticizing them to their face, turning everybody else in the group against them, So we can very easily get angry at somebody, especially people we're close to, and then we set up our own little network to get people on our side and turn them against that person and harm that person. And so that's also a break of trust. But again, when we do that, we wouldn't say, oh, I'm an evil, cruel person who takes delight in making somebody suffer. We wouldn't say that about ourselves. We would say, well, no, it's their fault. They did that to me. I'm just doing what any sane person would do in response. Wouldn't we? So what I'm getting at is, how tricky our mind is and how we can so easily breach trust with the people that we care about the most and the people with whom we interrelate with the most, simply by our own attachment and anger and our blindness in the whole process. Yeah, and so that means we have to be really, really careful about what's going on in our mind and very attentive, to remember the commitments we've made to people, to remember our precepts, to remember the direction we want to take in our life, you know, in the case of my friends, to remember the marriage vows, you know, and to keep those in mind, and then use those things to guide our behavior. And when we see our mind wanting to go outside of that, yeah, to use the precepts to help restrain the physical and verbal actions, and then to really look at our mind and be honest with ourselves about what's going on. And that self-honesty can be very difficult, can't it? Yeah, but that's exactly what we need to do. Yeah, the more we are able to have that honesty and have that mental factor of introspective awareness that knows what we're doing and what we're thinking and feeling, and have the mindfulness of our commitments and our precepts, the more those two factors are strong in our mind, then the easier it's going to be to prevent the activities that break the trust to start with. Okay? There's two other mental factors that we really want to exercise and develop too that help us not to break trust. One is called a sense of integrity, and that's where we abandon doing what is destructive or counterproductive out of self-respect. You know, like I don't want to be the kind of person who does that. Yeah, I'm looking at my mind, and with, you know, a snap of the fingers, I could easily be the person who does that, but I really don't want to, because I have a sense of self-respect, a sense of my own integrity. I don't want to go down that road. So that mental factor, that things like that, helps us restrain. Yeah. Another mental factor is consideration for others, thinking of the effects of our actions on other people. Okay, so this is the mental factor that this man got after his wife found out about whatever was going on. You know, was like, oh my goodness, now I see what I did to her and how I caused her suffering. If that mental factor had been stronger earlier on, you know, when he saw himself getting attracted to somebody else, he would have said, oh, but I care about my wife, and it's a very important relationship, and I don't want to hurt her feelings, and I don't want to destroy the trust and break up the marriage. Yeah? So we see that all these mental factors we have in us already, but so many of them are not developed very well. And so because of that, then we just go down the well-worn road of attachment and anger. Okay, but if we try and, you know, reinforce our mindfulness, our introspective awareness that's checking up what's going on inside, our sense of personal integrity, our consideration for others, then if we develop these mental factors consciously in our daily life, in our meditation, then they can really help us to prevent going down those roads. And that prevents negative karma, it prevents problems in this life, it prevents lower rebirths, it prevents putting obstacles in our mind for gaining liberation and full awakening. So, you know, sometimes it's interesting, we hear the teachings on morality or ethical conduct, and it just sounds like, you know, some kind of, you know, topic up here outside, you know. But when we talk about it as breaking trust, then it really brings it much more into our heart, doesn't it? You know, because we've all broken others' trust, and we've all had our trust broken, and we know what that feels like. And knowing what that feels like, then we don't want to do it to anybody else. So then that acts as an incentive to really develop these mental factors and to keep our precepts well. Yeah? Because the precepts and the guidelines that we have for the community here really help us do that. And the five lay precepts for, you know, regular people on the outside with their jobs and their families. Oh, if people kept the 5 precepts, their lives would be so much happier. Yeah, so much happier. I think I mentioned to you another family that is writing me, 2 other families actually, who are writing me, because the man has gone off and, had an affair with somebody else and is now leaving their wives, and both families have children, young children. So then one has 3 children, one has 2 children. So, people affecting not only their spouses, but also their children because of, and not only their children, but also the in-laws. I mean, everybody's affected when something like this goes on, So, to really think about this beforehand and try and get our act together. And I think that's what's so beautiful about the Buddha Dharma, is it shows us, these are the mental factors to strengthen, these are the actions to take care of, and be careful not to do. Here's how to set up a daily meditation practice so you can become more aware of what's going on inside of you. So it's very, very helpful. And really improves the quality of our lives right now, as well as in the future. Okay. We'll continue with trust tomorrow. Yeah, and if people have questions, write them down, because this is a good time to, while we're on this topic, to address them.